Okay, so hello everyone. Today we are very honored to have Karen Kuhn, founder and president of Waterlution, and Megan Cornall, who is the Water Innovation Lab network lead. They are here to share some of the programming and wash-related projects that they run through Waterlution. And so without further ado, I'll pass the floor over to Karen and Megan to share more.
Hi, everyone. Very nice to see your faces, and thank you for joining us today. We love, doing talks like this, and it's an extra bonus in that there's a few of you whose names I'm recognizing, and that we're going to get to meet in person in Alberta at our Water Innovation Lab happening in Canada, in Alberta, in just over a month from now. So seeing your names and seeing that you're real people is really exciting for us. And for those of you that are not coming, that's totally cool too. It was just nice when you see worlds coming together. So it's been 20 years next month since I started Waterlution with a university colleague. And so it's a very special year for us at Waterlution. Some of you might know our work, some of you might not. We do programming across Canada, but we also do stuff in the Global South, which is where we're going to focus our talk today. So Megan, do you want to, I can't remember what the next slide is. Oh, I'll do the goals and then you can share a bit more for Waterlution. So I'm not going to read all of these. They're all available on our website. But for those of you that don't know Waterlution, you as individuals on this call, you are our target audience. So we design learning programs for youth, which is some of you, but is young professionals, which is what you are, to develop skills in a climate changing world. And we develop a lot of programming. We facilitate a lot of global dialogue. We participated in the UN Water Conference in March. I think I've lived in, I don't know, like 12 countries over the course of my life, and many of those in the Global South. That's where Waterlution, the spark for Waterlution started, was when I was living in Bolivia and Costa Rica. So we've got a wide global network, and we use that at all the time. We are very community focused. So we really are looking at most things from a community perspective, and definitely in the Global South, looking at, specific needs of communities and contexts. I've already spoken to the global mobilization, so there's a lot of mobilization of knowledge transfer. Another thing that we do, for those of you that will be coming to the Water Innovation Lab, you'll get a small dabbling of it. We use a lot of artistic processes to engage communities, and we do that in Canada as well as globally. And we have an artistic director who's been with us for a long time, so it's a big part of our work. We work, on the Sustainable Development Goals, especially Goal 6, and our strategic plan is always trying to get us to be a go-to organization for innovation and solution making and innovative approaches on water topics as they connect to a climate changing world. Next slide. I think it's you, Megan, so people can meet you as well.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. My name is Megan, and I've been with Waterlution for almost 4 years now. And so I'll just speak a little bit more. Karen's really touched on this, but we work with youth, and the goal is to evolve people's relationship with water. And this is done through 3 main streams, I would say, of our programming. So the Water Innovation Labs, just on the bottom left there. We have one coming up in October in Alberta, which is really exciting, working with young professionals like yourself to collaborate together on some of the most pressing water challenges. The second stream is youth leadership through school programming, working with the younger communities and getting them connected to water as well. And then, as Karen has mentioned, art and creativity is really infused and integrated into every aspect of our programming as a way to engage people with water. And then on the left here is a project that has been kind of developing over the last couple of years that emerged through the pandemic and all of the online collaboration that was taking place at that time. World Water Journey. It's an online platform that shares knowledge and water stories at different places around the globe through different mediums, videos, podcasting, situation reports. So really encourage you to check that out as well. It's on our website. Anything you'd like to add here, Karen?
The only thing I'd like to add is that I did share with Catano World Water Journey, and we were already, because of the field work that Catano is doing in Colombia. Like basically, we love the World Water Journey site. It's very community focused, like geographic focused. I wouldn't say that. So like there's a PEI pin, there's a Halifax pin, there's quite a few in BC. Our Mozambique and Tanzania pins should be getting online in the next few months. There's Brazil. So there's a hyper localness to it, which, as Megan said, came out from the pandemic. So we think that it's an amazing site that is a place that we're spending a lot of energy developing out. And so some of your WASH work, like if you're working on interesting projects that are very tied to a certain geographic area, that could be really interesting for you to be in touch with us around podcasts, videos, situation reports. Like there's a lot there. So please feel free to be in touch with Megan or I. If there's something there that you feel is interesting, you can reach out to us. We're very accessible.
All right, over to you, Karen.
Okay, so how we structured our presentation today, because we could talk about this for a lot longer than, like anybody. So what we have done is we pulled two examples, one from our work in Lebanon and another one from our work in Mozambique. So I'm going to speak more to the Lebanon piece and Megan's going to speak more to the Mozambique piece. We also, for those of you that are interested or specifically interested in Tanzania, we have just completed our first water innovation lab in Tanzania, huge WASH focus in rural areas. We partnered with the national parks, or our main partner was the national parks in Tanzania. And so if this is of interest to you, we just couldn't fit it in today's presentation, but there will be stuff online in the next, I'm going to be realistic and say by the end of the year, showing the innovations that came out from all the capacity building and workshops that took place in Tanzania over the last year. So now I'm going to bring us to Lebanon. You notice the year is 2021. So we were in the middle of a pandemic, and water innovation labs, I don't know if you want to go to the next slide, Megan. Somewhere between 5 and 7 days. And they are experiential learning. Like I mentioned at the top end of this call, you are our target audience. So often we have graduate students, sometimes later undergraduate students. That we can also have young professionals that are already working outside of an academic environment, but the median age is usually around 28. And we go on a deep dive looking at 21st century skills and getting people out into the field to be looking at different contexts, meeting with different stakeholders, being in an engaging environment where you're learning about things, and then we're always creating dialogue opportunities to understand that content better. So we had some Lebanese people on the team, so they were really pushing for us to get our feet into Lebanon, and we had some wonderful partnerships with UNICEF. I'm talking about it in the past tense because of UNICEF. Well, they're wonderful. They're heavily invested in the Ukraine right now. So if anybody was like, what's going on in Lebanon right now? It's a little bit paused because of their shift of focus. So we went and we had this wonderful in-person water innovation lab where we were looking at a whole bunch of different, very localized challenges. And then we train on innovative approaches so that those participating can look and practice different solution-making opportunities. And more, we are seeing piloting of potential entrepreneurial outcomes, like that, entrepreneurial endeavors are coming out. Sometimes they stay embedded in an academic setting. Sometimes it's people finishing their academic studies and wanting to go and create businesses. So there's a lot that comes out of these water innovation labs. So next slide. So I was giving you a context there of what it looked like in person before we moved online. And so pause on what you're looking at there. I'm just going to speak to something really interesting that happened in the design of being forced to take a program that many would have said was 100% valuable because of the in-personness, right? And I'm sure many of you had similar experiences where you're like, how do we do this virtually? How can we make it exciting? And so what came out, because we were, like everybody, sad that we couldn't deliver these programs in person. What was really interesting is that we put out a call. UNICEF, our partner, was an amazing, they really helped us co-design this. And what we did is we were able to go out to a global audience and invite them into an online learning program. And the requirements were that we did need Lebanese people on the ground. So we needed enough Lebanese participants because it was on informal settlements in Lebanon. And so teams were working together globally, sharing knowledge, creating teams around themes. And then the Lebanese people on each of the teams were going out and piloting when it became safe to do so. And I share this with you because we never, ever would have experimented with that model had it not been for COVID. And while there was a lot of terrible things about COVID, there was an opportunity to try out some new things. And so again, not knowing what everybody's work is, the opportunity to have locally focused content and bring a global audience together to work together was unbelievably rewarding. And so one of the things that came up is we have two wonderful partners in Lebanon. One is called CWAS that works more on the incubation part of problem solving, and Berry Tech, which works more on the accelerator part. So that's all that slide is. I won't get into the details of what that training was. So what we want to focus on was through this global platform of meeting, I think, Megan, I think it was over 5 or 6 weeks. And then we paused the unbelievable input that UNICEF played. So UNICEF is one in Lebanon, especially in the area that we work, which is the Bekaa, which is the northeast part of the country that borders on Syria, which is why there's so many informal settlements. And informal settlements, we know, are a worldwide, they exist worldwide, and the context and the realities and the climate and the water access and the institutions and stakeholders that surround each of those different geographic regions might be different, but often there are some common threads. So in Lebanon, UNICEF is one of the main government entities working on WASH programming. And so they brought together an amazing array of experts around wastewater, wastewater and soil contamination was another one. But what was amazing with UNICEF is they really spent the time learning about the details of these innovative approaches, giving feedback, and then all certain teams, I think 70% of the teams got seed funding from UNICEF to develop out these projects. So I know we could be here a lot longer today. So this is just trying to give you a snapshot of, over the course of 6 weeks, strangers that came together, again, probably with very similar backgrounds to many people that are on this call today, but really through online workshops and capacity building and the innovation process that was brought by our partners CWAS and Berry Tech, we're able to come up with solutions to address very pressing problems. And UNICEF was really relying on us to really come up with challenges that they were really struggling with. And they were very impressed with the quality and the amount of time, like the tight timeline where these ideas came to be. So this one, you've probably already all read it because I've talked too much, about transforming wastewater that is produced in the informal settlements into clean water and electricity. And they were using I can never say it, can you help? Microbial, I can't say that word. Yes, microbial. It doesn't come off my tongue very well. Fuel cells. I would be interested in, if others want to ask later, where some of these projects are at, because some of these projects are still ongoing and have been tested and, have been adapted. Obviously, you need many iterations to kind of get the results you're looking for. Okay, keep going, because we're just trying to give you a snapshot of some of the projects that came out. This one was around crop irrigation. And so this was about effluent that was suitable for crop irrigation. And this one I think this one stayed with UNICEF. This project might have even been incorporated into UNICEF because it was a fully tested method of using effluent for crop irrigation, which was incredibly useful, obviously, for food production and water management in the Bekaa area. Next one, Megan. Oh yeah, this one was a biogas plant. And I wasn't on, the Biosetter was the name of the group. I don't think this one, now that I look at it, I don't think that they kept going. So my apologies. It's a great example, but in terms of it being proven, maybe we could have taken that slide out, but my apology. They were still a wonderful group that I think they tested it, and it was way more expensive than the budget sort of allowed for, but it was still a very interesting process. Okay, next one. WIS team. Oh yeah, this was a data driven one, which again, I'm sure many of you look at, and there was a massive gap that was identified by the UNICEF partners about how to make, we all know that, understanding the data in front of you is so important to make important decisions. And this was a really interesting one as well for different stakeholders, because this was really about the stakeholders in the surrounding areas of the informal settlements, working, sort of building closer relationships with those in the settlement areas. And because the informal settlements are very much incorporated in this area into local communities. And so it was like, because of the war in Syria, the sort of spillage of ongoing people coming into nearby towns of the Lebanese-Syrian border, made it a crowded space. And so there was a lot of collaboration here on understanding the data, and there was very little data. So there was a lot of data collection here that was very helpful for farmers and residents coexisting. Next one, Megan. Oh yeah, okay, so this one was more of a social program. And this one was such a huge hit at UNICEF. So again, it's unfortunate that I don't know all of your backgrounds. What was interesting here was, when you're dealing with WASH, obviously you're often looking at some of the technical aspects of how are you managing water and hygiene processes and everything like that. But what was interesting in the specific case of the informal settlement, however, I think you would, in informal settlements, but I think you would see this in different contexts as well, was a missed opportunity not to be creating a fun and engaging way for more information exchange. And so this was a mobile film screening that moved across the informal settlements, basically sharing more about the work that was happening, but also getting feedback from those that were the direct recipients of, that were living in the informal settlements. And so this one was a real hit with UNICEF. And I believe they've incorporated it and in some ways still have it ongoing. So looking at that the social side and the educational component of what we do in the WASH world. Eco cabinet, sorry, this is taking more time. I'm sorry, Megan, I know we'll get to Mozambique. This one, as you can probably see, had certain, it wasn't a cheap solution. However, it was very, very well thought out. It had the most global team. There was one person from Lebanon and everybody else was from Europe, Africa, North America, Mexico. And together they invented this eco cabinet solution, and was very well funded by UNICEF to not only pilot it, but to implement it in a variety of informal settlements. All right, keep going. Oh, that's it. Sorry. I was like, and the end. Okay, well, anyway, I want to pass it over. So they're very different projects of what we're bringing to you today. So the Lebanese examples was around this water innovation lab, like I said, very much WASH focused, looking for very real implementable solutions that could be piloted in a very specific geographic area with very focused needs. And now we're going to move to a different way that we do WASH programming in a different country and with a different methodology and with a younger target audience. So intentionally, we're trying to give you different things today. Hopefully that is interesting. So over to you, Megan.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So this project was called the Adolescent Girl Empowerment Through Capacity Building. Oh, I would click the slide. And Water Innovation in Northern Mozambique. And so we were testing over the course of 8 months a hypothesis that we had developed, and then we measured the impacts of it over the course of that time. And this was the hypothesis that we were testing. If adolescent girls aged 12 to 15 receive capacity building in leadership, water innovation, and permaculture connected to the critical challenge of scarce water resource and poor sanitation in their schools, then they will be empowered to participate in decisions about which responses and interventions could be developed in their school grounds, incentivizing school attendance, boosting confidence, and creating shared gender transformative value for the community. So very long hypothesis, but this is really what we were looking at testing over the course of this project. And sharing a little bit of local context. So through two different lenses here. So through the gender lens, in northern Mozambique, we were working in Nampula in 2 different schools. So in Mozambique in general, 41.5% become pregnant before the age of 18, of women, sorry. 70% of women have a chance of becoming a single mother before turning 30. 2% complete university, and girls ages 12 to 15 have the burden of water carriage, which has health and economic implications, which is why we were really working with these girls, because they have such a close connection to the water. They're so involved with collecting it on a daily basis, and it really directly impacts them.
And can I jump in for a moment as well to say that the other reason, and again, other people on this call, you might be dealing with this in your own research, is this was the critical age of not only because they're adolescent, where pregnancies could happen, but also where girls leave school. And so our partners, our local partners, were very focused on if we could have something that builds their confidence and builds their skills, would that be something that keeps them in school while also increases WASH accessibility in the school environment? Because sometimes that's the only place that there is any sanitation services. So sorry, Megan.
Yeah, and building off of that, that age of 12 to 15 is often when women reach puberty and begin menstruating, and that makes it really challenging for them to continue attending school when the school does not have the WASH facilities needed for them to manage their menstruation. So having them involved in identifying the challenges and solutions as well. In terms of the WASH lens, so in Mozambique, open defecation rate of 36%, one of the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. 76% of the population do not have or do not use improved sanitation facilities. So I won't read through all of these, but you can get a general overview of the context. So in our testing methodology, we had 2 different groups of beneficiaries. The direct beneficiaries were 100 Marusis, and this is the local kind of term for the young girls, the 12 to 15-year-old girls, who participated in the workshop. They attended 2 different schools there. And then in addition to them, there were 5 university-educated female facilitators who lived in Mozambique and who we worked very closely with to collaborate on the development of the workshops and to deliver the workshops with the Marusis. The indirect beneficiary groups included the broader community members, parents, families, teachers, the local government, the water concessionary members, and male students as well. And while these folks did not participate in the workshops themselves, they did indirectly, we were able to measure some impacts on those beneficiary groups. So the program was delivered in 3 phases, and it was a train the trainer model. So the first phase was facilitator capacity building. So those women, the 5 university educated women that I mentioned, we worked with them to do capacity building on innovation, on systems thinking, and solution design connected to WASH and permaculture. Then we worked with them to adapt the workshops to the local context, and also with local consultants that we hired to deliver those workshops to the young Marusis. And those were delivered over 6 workshops, 12 in total over 2 different schools. And in the workshops, they were doing solution design, and they were building scale models about what they could do in their communities to improve the water and sanitation challenges. And then finally, in the 3rd phase, there was a community celebration where the Marusis brought their solutions and their models and spoke about their ideas to the community. And they also received certifications and were celebrated in a whole ceremony. And here are just some shots of the process. So on the left here, these are the Maroosies building their scale models and presenting them to each other. And then on the top right, these are the 5 women who we worked with really closely on delivering the workshops. And then finally at the bottom there, the celebration event, getting their certificates at the end of it all. So what makes this approach innovative is that young women are at the center of the process. As Karen and I mentioned, they're the most affected and involved in the water and the WASH challenges. So bringing them into the process and getting them most involved there. The design and delivery of the collaborative capacity building. The impact over time is a systems change. That is something that we really try hard to do at Waterlution, is looking at systems and how we can come up with solutions that impact systems change. It's gender transformative, and importantly, it's in line with Mozambique's gender and education policies. So the monitoring, evaluation, and learning element, we had several indicators, short-term, intermediate, and long-term indicators, to measure the impact of this program. And we did this through 3 different methods. The first was baseline and end-line surveys. These were conducted with the Maroosies, the 5 facilitator women, and broader community members, which was teachers, parents, government leaders, etc. We also had focus group discussions and key informant interviews with the community members and local associations. And then at the community celebration event at the end, the certificates of completion were rewarded to the Maroosies. And then the test findings from the first 2 points up here were shared back with the community. And together we spoke about the different outcomes of the workshops and hosted interactive dialogue to get their feedback on the results and how we could work together on the next steps and take this into the next steps. Okay, there's a lot of indicators and I won't go through all of them, but this is kind of a nice snapshot of, we had several short-term, many intermediate, and then on the next slide, there's the long-term impacts. And most of them were exceeded. We had targets for each of them, and most were exceeded, some were almost met, and a few of them were approaching. The ones that I really like to highlight, which Karen spoke to us at the beginning, is the increase in confidence and leadership in the Maroosies. And this was reported by the Maroosies themselves. 88% of them reported an increase in their confidence. And it was also supported by observations of the women facilitators, those 5 women who worked with them really closely and developed relationships with them and got to know them. They also reported to us, they noticed an increase in their participation, willingness to contribute and speak and share their ideas throughout the course of the workshops. And these are some of the long-term. We have a long report on this as well with all of the details. So lessons learned from this. Music and storytelling integrated into the workshop and dancing. This really increased the engagement of the Maroosies, and we saw that their confidence and their participation was improved a lot when we integrated this. Sensitivity towards menstruation. So as I mentioned, that menstruation is a big reason that many women do drop out near that puberty age of school. So it was important that this was integrated into the workshops, and we needed to do it with a level of cultural sensitivity, and working with the 5 women to deliver this material in a way that was sensitive was important. Thirdly, ownership from the Maroosies. So this was a quote from one of the girls. We want to be giving these classes. We women want to create spaces that we women can call the men and give them the classes on these materials. So we could see that the girls were beginning to take ownership of the content. They wanted to be the ones talking about it and sharing their ideas with the greater community. So that was really cool to see. And this is kind of just outlining how that can happen, how it did happen in this case, and how it can continue to happen, where the facilitators train new facilitators, who then train the Maroosies, who then can go and train other girls, other women, men, and potentially boys in the community. So ongoing impact, there's several different things happening. Karen, do you want to speak to the first one here, the AVTG project?
Sure, sounds good. So one of the projects that the girls came up with in what Megan was sharing was that they wanted to meet regularly, like almost like a water board, like a women's, it was a water circle, but it was like, you know, what we would see as a, you know, where you're checking in on a regular basis. And so we were able to get specific additional funding to develop out that project. We had some contacts there, and so that was the partner. And GIZ, for those of you who don't know, is a very large German, global but German-based consulting company. And so yeah, we got to develop out one of the projects even further than the 8 months.
Awesome.
And Niusha is number 2. So I didn't know Niusha was on the call today, but Niusha, I mentioned this to Eloisa and Alexa, is coming to the Water Innovation Lab. And so Niusha's master's work is taking what we did in Mozambique and moving it into an app so that we can expand on this. So there you go. Niusha, see you're in point 2. Sorry.
Right. And then so additional projects coming out of it. So Will Tanzania. Karen, you want to speak to how that came out of it? I didn't know about how that connected.
Well, because so it's a World Bank funded project working with the national parks, and it was our largest, it's our largest project single-handedly that we've done in sub-Saharan Africa. And we wouldn't, so much of this work, especially when you're, the larger the scale you go, is about risk. And so Will Tanzania wouldn't have been possible without Mozambique, because of our ability to work. While they're different languages, they are different countries, there's some contextual pieces that are similar. And so we had examples that we could pull from this that gave confidence and helped shape the program in Tanzania. I can keep going if you want, because I feel like you keep passing back to me. So anyway, we have a team in Brazil as well, and they have adapted what we've learned in Mozambique, and now are creating it in are delivering it in favela schools in and around Rio de Janeiro. And our Brazilian partners are very pleased with that, so they want to see it expanded. But it's really about this girls' empowerment on WASH decision making. I mean, that's really what our hypothesis proved was valuable, and then we can keep adapting it to local contexts. There was a commitment by the water provider to dig wells. We were happy with that. That's an immediate, like, come up with an immediate solution. And yet the women's circle, or the young girls circle, the Marusis, really wanted to see something longer term. And they did get permaculture training as well. I know that was touched on, but we just didn't have time in today to develop that out. But they want to see something more holistic. But that was a good sort of early step. And it does seem that many of these Marusis, felt motivated to stay in school, and having improved sanitation facilities was part of that helpfulness and their empowerment. It was really incredible. Oh, and we delivered this whole thing virtually. We were all meant to go there, but it was COVID. So that was another, interesting factor. Anyway, okay, Carrie, I can't remember what else comes after this, Megan.
Okay. So here's just a quote from one of the facilitators. This is one of the women who worked with the Marusis. So a Marusi once said, "Sis, I built a well with my sisters and my friends so that we could have water." Another Marusi built a model showing the water supply system for a village all by herself and explained it in front of everyone what she had built. So just seeing their confidence in sharing their knowledge and their ideas. And if you want to learn more, on our website, we do have outcome reports. These are stories of change from Jessica and Larissa, Jessica was one of the facilitators, and Larissa was the Marusi who participated, and their stories are available to read on our website. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great job, Megan. Yeah, so thanks everybody for listening to a little bit of what we do at Waterlution. I don't know if there's questions, or I don't know how Alexa and Eloisa, I don't know how you want to go from here.